I want to see our post office be reinvigorated. And one of the ways that I think we can help not only the U.S. Postal Service, but help a lot of low-income people. If you are a low-income person, it is, depending upon where you live, very difficult to find normal banking. Banks don't want you. And what people are forced to do is go to payday lenders who charge outrageously high interest rates. You go to check cashing places which rip you off. And yes, I think that the Postal Service, in fact, can play an important role in providing modest types of banking service to folks who need it.
Through rain, through snow, through dark of night, through badly manicured lawns and neighborhoods where driving a tank would be more appropriate than a Jeep, nothing stops the United States Postal Service. But let us not hold to ridicule all the dedicated people who make being a postal carrier their vocation. Let us instead deal with the higher pay grade leadership, the ones currently in charge of a governmental agency, which means using your money, losing $1.5 billion in a recent 3-month span, and being happy about it because it wasn't the $1.9 billion they lost at the same time 1 year prior. A savings to you, the taxpayer, of $0.4 billion. And there was rejoicing throughout the land. Welcome back, the Vice President of Policy and Communications for Citizens Against Government Waste, Leslie Paige. All right, Leslie, now seeing that neither one of us will ever get anything delivered to our house again after this segment is all done.
Don't worry about it. I've already been, my mail stopped coming long ago.
I believe that. I think mine's next. Here's a report written by Robert Shapiro that we want to touch on here. How the U.S. Postal Service uses its monopoly revenues and special privileges to subsidize its competitive operations. Give us the gist of what this tells us.
The gist of the study, and it's a second in a series by Mr. Shapiro, who is a Democrat, used to work in the Clinton administration, and was a co-founder of the Progressive Policy Institute back in the day, and he's an economist. Is that the value of the U.S. Postal Service's advantages and privileges is very high, much higher than the Postal Service would lead you to believe. Postal Service claims that the value of its monopoly and the value of its special tax breaks and the value of its ability to borrow at the Treasury window at very low interest rates hovers around $4 to $5 billion. Well, Mr. Shapiro, in his previous study, actually said no. On the contrary, these special privileges are worth about $18 billion a year. That's big. In addition to which, the second piece that he's just done starts to deal with the cross-subsidy issue. As you know, the Postal Service has monopoly products that they do, which is first-class mail, mom and pop, what they call snail mail, and then they've got packages, or mass mail that they do. Those are kind of their monopoly products. But they've also gotten into competitive products, express mail, parcels, et cetera, et cetera. And those two products, they allocate their costs differently for both of those products. And his allegation is that the United States Postal Service is cross-subsidizing inappropriately and against the rules. It is using these privileges to cross-subsidize, and they shouldn't be doing that. And the other takeaway from the study is that we don't really have a sight line onto their allocations, the way they actually allocate their costs. And until we have that, truly have that, we will not be able to come up with a comprehensive way to solve the post office's structural problems, their financial problems.
See, there it is right there, what you're hitting, structural problems, and that's what people often miss. So when Bernie Sanders starts talking about banking, and we've heard this before, that the post office says if we got into banking, we could save ourselves here and we could make a lot of money. 90 seconds to go here, Leslie. Is there any truth, is there any thinking process that would actually work, or is that just a dodge to stave off the inevitable?
Yes and yes and yes. The bottom line is there's been a growing chorus started by and abetted by Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, who's also made these same arguments, is that there's a way that the Postal Service should be allowed to rationalize its bloat and its large workforce and its infrastructure to get into new products, and one of the new products should be banking. To date, their entire experience with the banking community is basically selling money orders, and just leave it to folks in Washington to think that you sell money orders and you can be a banker. Somehow or other, those things are it's very simple. Well, we know very, very, very well, and your viewers know very well, that financial services is a complex ecosystem. You don't mess around with it. You don't let a postal service that is already structurally broken to sort of foray into brand new private sector businesses in order to rationalize its workforce and its bricks and mortar infrastructure. That is absolutely ludicrous, and I think everybody knows it. I think the Postal Service needs to stick to its knitting, and they need to start working on streamlining what they've got, what they need to do. They need to start to right-size their operations, and Congress needs to let them do that by creating a comprehensive postal reform package that actually keeps them out of unfairly competing with private sector businesses.
And
so far, we haven't got that.
We will talk about that another time. We're out of time, and hopefully they would pare down some of those ridiculous salaries at the top and let the mail carriers really do their job, the people who are dedicated to doing this job. I want to remind everybody, you want to read more about this and other things that are involved in pork with your money. Go to cagw.org, the Citizens Against Government Waste. Leslie Paige, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, one poll says this guy could beat Trump and Bush in a landslide. All you have to do is get off his lawn. Next on The Hardline.